There's no denying that mental health issues are at an all-time high. It's estimated that by the year 2030, depression will be the single biggest burden of disease on the global economy. I think that the key to turning this around and the key to good mental health is resilience. I think we need to build resilience in individuals and in communities. When I talk about good mental health, what I mean is the ability to cope with the normal ups and downs of life. The World Health Organization defined good mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual is able to realize their full potential, is able to cope with the normal stresses of life, and is able to contribute to their community. The dictionary definition of resilience is the ability to quickly overcome trauma, literally to spring back. We will all experience difficulties in our lives, whether that's bereavement, loss, relationship breakdown, problems at work, businesses failing. These are simple facts of life. Being resilient is accepting that being alive means that these things will happen, and being able to adapt and overcome them when they do. I believe that we're all born resilient. How can we not be? We're built to survive. Think of the mother in the famine-ravaged country who somehow manages to carry and deliver a healthy baby. Think of the trauma that every baby goes through just to be born into the world. Think of the toddler learning to walk. He doesn't give up the first time that he falls over. He picks himself up and he tries again, and he falls over, and he picks himself up and he tries again, and so on. We're born to survive. That's how we're made. Experts disagree on how much of resilience is genetic, but there's no arguing that we all have it. It's true, though, that some people seem to get over life's challenges more easily than others. When I was 13, I woke up in excruciating pain one day. Many, many hours later, the doctors diagnosed that I had septicemia, or sepsis as it might be more commonly known. So many hours had gone past until I was diagnosed, and fortunately, it could have been a lot more serious. It didn't go to my heart or my brain as it could have done, but it destroyed my hip. So I lost all of my hip joint and the top of my femur. Because this happened at such a young age, none of the doctors that were looking after me were willing to do surgery. So I had to wait from being 13 until I was 18 to have the surgery. So I had no hip for 5 years. So I lived in a lot of pain, and it meant that I wasn't able to do the things that teenagers are normally able to do. It's like my life was on hold. When I was 18, I had the surgery that I needed, and it was like pressing play on my life again. You know, I was able to start doing the things that teenagers, trying to make up for the things that I hadn't been doing maybe for the last 5 years. But 3 months passed, and my life just came crashing down around my ears. I was just 19, and I suffered a huge stroke. My parents were told that I wouldn't survive, and if I did, then I would be very severely brain damaged and probably wouldn't have very much quality of life. Well, they were wrong, clearly. With a lot of love and a lot of care and support, I recovered fully. I remember in the years that passed, a lot of people saying to me, "Oh God, you must have been so strong. You were so brave to go through all of those things and come through the other side of it, so positive," and you know, all of those sorts of things. And nothing of the kind ever occurred to me. You know, to me, it was just a given that I would survive. It was never in question. It was a given that I would recover and that I would live the life that I wanted to live. So when I look back and I think, well, why is that? Why why was I so resilient? What was it that I had that made me resilient? And there's two things that I can pick out, really. The first is I always knew who I was. I always had a strong sense of myself, and I believed in myself. And the second was that I always had hope. You know, I always expected that I would recover. It was never in question. And hope is absolutely essential for resilience. For anybody to be resilient, there has to be hope. So I said earlier that experts disagree about whether resilience is genetic or not. And that's an argument that will go on and on, I guess. But there's no doubt that we all have resilience. What's really clear to me is that in some of us, that resilience gets knocked out of us for some reason. Whether it's the things that we go through in our lives, or maybe the things that we see our loved ones experience, sometimes that resilience can get knocked out of us. When I was in my early 20s, I remember saying to a friend of mine, I'm not the kind of person that would experience mental health issues. It doesn't happen to people like me. And I guess I was young. I'd been through quite a lot of stuff in my young life at that point, and I probably felt pretty invincible by this stage. So, you know, depression, that's for other people. From my early 20s until my mid-30s, I built a business. I sold it. I built another business on my own, and I worked under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure during that time. And I used to tell the story that I thrived under stress and pressure. I got off on it. That was my thing. And maybe to an extent that was true. Then, again, but in a very different way, my world came crashing down again. I'd just sold my last business, and I made a bad decision, a really bad decision. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking that maybe you've made a mistake, or you've made a bad decision, or you're about to make a bad decision, don't do what I did, which was try to mask what was going on for me. I just squashed down all of my fears and my emotions and plastered a mask on and tried to continue. I thought that I was trapped. I thought that I was stuck with the decision that I'd made. Don't do what I did. That resulted in me having a breakdown. I tried to mask it in any way that I could, all the usual stuff. But in the end, I found myself on the floor, literally on my kitchen floor. With hindsight, I realised that my breakdown didn't happen overnight. I didn't just find myself on the kitchen floor one day. That was the accumulation of years of stress and pressure and anxiety. And finding myself on the floor wasn't the end of it. It was another year and another breakdown, or maybe it was the second stage of the same breakdown before I began to recover. So what does this have to do with resilience? Well, I recovered. I'm not the same as I was before. I still have really low days. I still experience crippling anxiety at times. But I've recovered, and I feel stronger than I ever did. I'm more resilient now. I know what it is to be at my lowest point, and I've dragged myself back from that, and now I'm more resilient than ever. I've talked about resilience, and that I think it's something that everybody has, and that I think it's something that can be knocked out of us at times. I also think it's something that we can develop. I think it's something we can develop in ourselves, and we can help other people to develop their own resilience. In March 2018, my partner killed himself. In the days that followed his death, I seriously questioned whether I had the strength to carry on. In those early days, there were practical things to do and people to speak to. And when I wasn't doing those things, I was lying on my bed crying and wondering how I was going to find the strength that I needed. And then on about the 7th day, I was lying on my bed and I heard his voice, my partner's voice, in my head. And he said to me, "Claire, remember who you are." I needed to remind myself who I am. I needed to remind myself how resilient I am. And I needed to find a purpose. Psychologist Edith Groberg says that we can all develop our own resilience by focusing on 3 statements or 3 phrases. I have strong relationships. I have structure. I have role models. These are external supports that are required. I am a person who helps and inspires others. I am a person that cares about other people. I am proud of myself. They are internal strengths that we can all develop. I can ask for help. I can solve problems. I can seek out good relationships. Those are external problem-solving skills that we can acquire. In the months after my partner's death, these are the things that I focused on. So the external supports that I needed, the friendships, the mentors, the guides, my faith, my belief that everything has a purpose, that I have a job to do here. And speaking about my experience, using what I have learned to help others. And that's how I've begun to rebuild my own resilience again. The title of my talk was "Resilience is Inbuilt and is the Key to Good Mental Health." We are resilient. You are resilient. I think we need to build that resilience in ourselves and in others. I think we need to speak to our children about resilience. I think our children need to be exposed to the challenges of life, not sheltered from them. They need to be shown that they can go through the hardest of times and they can come through the other side of it stronger than ever. You're more resilient than you know. Thank you.